Never mind.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the work session for the City Council for the City of Wildwood for Monday, September 13, 2021. Ms. Eldridge, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Bullen,
Here.
Councilmember Galani. Here. Councilmember Hopper,
Here.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Here.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Edens.
Here.
Councilmember Bros,
Here.
Councilmember Garitano. Councilmember Flasher,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo.
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon. Here. Councilmember Farmer.
Here.
Councilmember Nyan.
Here.
Councilmember Bartoni.
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Okay, welcome, everyone. Good to see all of you. And let's see, before we get to action items under information, we have, I believe, 14. Is there anything under information that any member of the council would like to discuss before we go into our action items? Okay, seeing none. Just have one question relative to the Monarch. Where's Rick Brown? There he is. Hello, Rick. Rick, relative to the Monarch issue, under item 4F, appreciate the memo. What do you think in a nutshell the next steps are in this regard? And that may be a question for Joe, Mr. Vinich, but if you can answer that, that would be great.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, let's let John, the city attorney says that may be a question for John, Rick. So
I would agree. Thank you.
Thank you. No problem. My apology, Rick. City Attorney Young, what do you think the next steps are? So we have the memo that talks about the fact that the study that was provided doesn't include certain things. So what's the next step?
Well, the step that has occurred is that the city has sent a letter to the Fire Protection District to identifying the shortfalls in the analysis to get it corrected. And they will be giving time or having given time to provide that correction, just like we would with any other application or conditional use permit.
Okay, and do you know do you recall what that time is?
I don't recall what was set in the date. Rick may know the answer to that, or Joe may know the answer to that. Yeah, I would think it would be about 15 days.
Rick Brown, do you know the time that was given?
Be quite frank, I believe my notice was relative to the degree that the traffic study was lacking. I don't believe I gave them an explicit time frame to respond back. I don't know if Joe would have anything to say about that.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have any knowledge of a time frame either. Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess as a practical matter, presumably they're the ones wanting the permitting process to proceed. So presumably it will happen sooner rather than later, I guess.
That's correct. In my recollection, and Mr. Vinich, I'll ask you to confirm this for me, but if full approval is not provided, I believe our city code has a provision that states that after a certain period of time, the conditional use permit expires.
That's correct. There's performance standards associated with the conditional use permit. Those performance standards are based upon timelines. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. All right, anything else under information before we go to action items from anyone? Okay. Moving into action items, the first responses to the city council questions regarding AARP. Let's see here. Mr. Vinich, are you speaking to that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, with your permission.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, The Planning and Parks Committee had been asked to investigate the possibility of the city of Wildwood participating in the Age-Friendly States and Communities program that is sponsored by the AARP. The committee endorsed the concept and wanted the city council to consider it as well. And so therefore, at the last meeting, this matter was presented. At the meeting, Ms. Clark, the representative from Ward 1, had a number of questions. And those questions were detailed enough that the department did not feel comfortable presenting responses at that time, even if it could. Ms. Clark was kind enough to send over the 6 questions, and the department has prepared responses to each of the 6. It is not the intent of the department to go through each of the responses tonight, but is available for any comments or questions regarding those responses that have been provided for consideration tonight. If the responses are satisfactory, the department is seeking direction from City Council, either to proceed forward with an application to the AARP, or if it's something that is not quite ready yet, certainly we can delay any action and come back at a future date. Thank you.
Thank you. So without objection, since this was raised by Councilmember Clark, I'll start with you. Councilmember Clark, do you have any follow-up to this, or do the responses to the 6 items, are you satisfied relative to those?
I'm satisfied with the answers.
Okay, thank you. Does any member of the council wish to have any other discussion or questions relative to this? All right, thank you. Moving to our next item, which is an executive session, and I think we will need to add, so we did a publication under RSMO Revised Statutes Missouri 610.0211 and 02112. I think we need to add in addition 6.0.0212 relating to, I'm sorry, 3 or 2? 3, that's fine. City Attorney says subsection 3 under 610.021. And that relates to what, Mr. Young?
It relates to personnel, Mayor.
Okay. All right. So if there's no objection, we will add that, and then we would need a motion to go into closed session. And this would need to be a roll call vote under law. Made by Councilmember Dodwell, seconded by Councilmember Farmer. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion on the motion to go into closed session, Ms. Eldridge, would you please call the roll on the vote?
Councilmember Galani.
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper.
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi.
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino.
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Yes.
Councilmember Edens.
Yes.
Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano.
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher.
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer.
Yes.
Councilmember Nyan.
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to go into closed session, and as we have been doing recently, if there's no objection, we will do that in the room for social distancing reasons. So unfortunately, for those of you in the audience, if you would please excuse us for a few minutes here so we can do this, we would appreciate that. And then just the city administrator, again, to make sure that we are offline, if you could please let everyone know what they need to do, which I believe is to simply turn off their microphones and close the laptops. Is that correct?
Make sure your microphones are off, please. Make sure your laptops are closed, actually close them. And then Travis will make sure that everything is offline and that we're in closed session. So, and when you speak during closed session, please make sure your microphone remains off. There's no need to turn your microphone on during the executives. Thank you.
I can just give one other. To those council members attending via Zoom, please leave the meeting and rejoin, I believe.
And we have relative to the council members that are remote, do we have a procedure to let them know when to come back on? I mean, does someone call them or?
Just have them watch.
Actually, yeah, please disregard that. Stay on. and we'll just shut the camera and the microphones off in this room. And
And
just,
they can see when they come back on.
they can see when to come back.
Okay,
Just-
did Councilmember Hopper and Bros, did you get that?
Yes.
Okay, so if you'll just oblige with that, we would appreciate it. Just watch your monitor, and when we get back live, you can rejoin. And we'll give you time to do that. Okay, thanks, Travis.
They're using the property right now. I think Joe will have something out sometime. I think we'll have something.
Oh, I'm hearing that from Watts. Yeah. Okay, council members, we need to reconvene the work session. Council member Bartoni, I think you had one question you wanted to mention or ask, so please proceed with that before we adjourn.
So it seemed like we went through this a little quick, the AARP network and the responses. And if Joe's out there, Joe, were you looking for a motion to move forward with this, or is this going to move forward on its own?
Mr. Mayor, with your permission. Mr. Bartoni, I would either need a motion or some direction from City Council to file the application. Absent that, it can certainly wait till a future date.
Okay, well, I'll make the motion that we go ahead and with the department's recommendation, we file the application.
Okay, is there a second to the motion made by Councilmember Dodwell? Is there any discussion on the motion? See no discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Councilmember Bartoni. Anything further under work session items? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn the work session. Made by Councilmember McCutcheon, seconded by Councilmember Galani. It's a non-debatable motion. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. So that's going to take us, we're going to go into our regular meeting. I want to thank all of you who are with us either remotely or in person for being with us this evening. It's good to see you and have you here. And also my apology that we ran over a few minutes on the work session. So relative to the main meeting of the council, I'd like to welcome everyone to the main meeting of the City Council for the City of Wildwood for Monday, September 13, 2021. Ms. Eldridge, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Boland,
Here?
Councilmember Galani,
Here.
Councilmember Hopper,
Here.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Here.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Edens, Councilmember Bros,
Here.
Councilmember Garitano, Councilmember Flasher,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember Nyan,
Here.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Okay, thank you and welcome again. For those of you who are in attendance here and are comfortably able to stand, if you'd please stand with me for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the City Council's August 23rd, 2021 work session and regular meeting. If anyone has any questions about the minutes, now would be the time, or suggested changes. Otherwise, I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Motion to approve the minutes as presented made by Councilmember Farmer. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Flasher. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes as presented? See no discussion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that takes us next to public participation. Public comment is a valuable component of our meeting. Anyone who wishes to speak must complete a speaker card and provide it to the city clerk, who is seated to your left of the podium. When your name is called, please approach the podium and state your name and ward. To ensure that all who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, there is a 5-minute time limitation, and I'll let you know when that time limit is reached. If you have any questions for us, please mention that during your remarks and identify the official you would like to respond. That official will make note of it, and at the conclusion of public participation, any official who chooses to respond will have 3 minutes to do so as to all questions directed to that official. The official may choose to respond to your questions after tonight's meeting, and we may also post any responses on the City Council page of our website. Finally, please be respectful to others in making your remarks. This means that interrupting others and using profane and abusive language are prohibited, and I want to thank everyone in advance for following these items. First speaker card, Ms. Eldridge.
The first speaker card is Tony Scroy, wishing to comment on internet access.
Mayor, City Council. My name is Tony Scroy. I'm a resident of Homestead Estates, which is in Ward 1 west of 109. I've been a resident for 7 years, moving in June of 2014. When we looked at our home, our beautiful home, the real estate disclosure did say internet. Yes, it was checked. However, we did not do a speed test on that, and we found out we had DSL, which is one step above dial-up. Not very modern internet access. Dismally slow, especially from working from home. Security was not there for us. Entertainment was completely out of the picture. And while we didn't have school-age children, my heart went out to those folks who had children at home to try to work through the internet. I believe that our lack of internet access had impact on real estate values. It certainly had impact on real estate sales that we could see houses that would fall through on a sale. And I, in fact, even recommended a partner of mine to not look in our area because the internet was so bad. I've been through a lot of the Internet Access Committee meetings over the years in the city, and the Access Committee did hire a consultant to only tell us that we were too rural for AT&T or other providers to invest. But we were in St. Louis County, so there was no money to provide us with internet access. We talked to a few of the providers. Charter wanted nearly $10,000 per home to install internet. Way too much money for the group that was there. AT&T was always happy to install internet in some of the denser developments in the city. Obviously, a lower investment and a higher revenue stream for them, but they were not interested in helping us. And for all of us and our neighbors, it just seemed hopeless for many years. And I know you have heard it. I know you've prioritized some investment in access, and I commend that. But my comments tonight are not to complain further. It may sound like I was complaining, but it's not to complain further. I'm here to bring good news to the City Council. And after an Internet Access Committee meeting, I talked to Chris Bay of Bay ZT, and he met with a small group of neighbors in Homestead Estates and in Shiloh. And he came back with a proposal for our subdivisions. If we could get everybody to sign up, he would do it. And it was difficult. I want you to all know it was a 1-year delay, COVID, supply chain issues, Ameren issues, permitting issues. But I wanted to comment and just really give accolades to Chris Bay of Bay's ET, who stuck with it. He was out there in the heat this summer, actually digging the trenches, digging the internet. And now we have 1 gigabyte speeds in our subdivision. It's tremendous. One of my neighbors said his term was, it's life altering. So again, my commendations is why I'm up here. My thanks to Chris Bay and to Bay's ET for providing modern internet access. And I do also want to mention that Chris Bay said that he was very complimentary of the city in the permitting process and speeding things through. So that's all I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker card, please.
The next speaker card is Edward Cohn, wishing to comment on the Prime Place lot split.
Thank you.
Good evening, Edward Cohn, Ward 3. I'm speaking to half as my participation in the Prime Place and the lot split that's on the agenda tonight. We're in the home stretch of getting our loan finalized, and my partner, Michael Kennedy, had the foresight to lock in the price for lumber. And that price is going to, or that lock-in is expiring in the near term. In order to execute on it, we need to have a loan, and we can't get a loan unless we have a legal lot. And it puts us in a situation that if we can't get a second reading tonight, we're going to get hit with a $300,000 increase on the price of lumber alone. So I'm respectfully requesting that we have a second reading of the lot split this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. We have any more speaker cards? Anyone online?
Mr. Mayor, I have 2 wishing to participate via Zoom. The first is Mr. Kruger.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Mr. Kruger, were you able to hear what I read earlier before we started public participation?
I was, yes.
Okay, perfect. Please go ahead and let us know your name and ward.
Sure. Yes, I'm Ben Kruger. I live in Ward 8 on Center Avenue in the Town Center District. I've been a resident of Wildwood since March of 2018. I spoke at a council meeting a few weeks ago about the state of Center Avenue and the reconstruction project that's been in the planning stages since I believe 2016. As you know, the street is a huge safety hazard for all who use it. It's an eyesore for Town Center and for the city of Wildwood. The condition of the street is directly impacting the property values of the homes directly on Center Avenue, those homes in Bordeaux Estates and Stone Mill, and as well as the surrounding businesses around Center Avenue. At our last meeting that we had with the planning department on June 1st, we were reassured from the city that they would be sending out revised contracts and meeting with the residents that still needed to sign off before construction could begin. As stated during this meeting, the process was to be completed by July 4th. It's now the middle of September, and it's my understanding that the city has still not met with these residents. I have a direct question for Joe Boonage, if he is on tonight. If not, Joe Garitano, I guess, but I see that Joe is on. Can you please provide a status update on the revised contract and provide a reason for the delay? I know I have some other residents on the call today from Center Avenue and from Stone Mill, and I think I can speak on their behalf that this project's been drawn out too long. We're frustrated, we're tired, and we're ready for the city to start making progress on the project. Thank you.
So Mr. Kruger, I want to thank you for being part of public participation and asking that question. Just by way of background, this part of our meeting is very technical in nature as to how it's governed and what we can do and who can ask questions and that sort of thing. So unfortunately, the bottom line is under our code, a member of our city team here at City Hall employed by the city is not able to take Q&A. But as a practical matter, I'm sure that Mr. Vintage heard that question, and hopefully, sometime tomorrow he can reply to you in an email and copy your 2 council members and me on that response. And if that doesn't solve it, I'm sure that we'll see you again. But unfortunately, it's just not allowed to ask questions of our city team, unfortunately. So just wanted to mention that.
Okay.
But again, he will be in response. Joe will get a response to you tomorrow. See him shaking his
Yeah,
head.
as I'm sure you guys can understand, we're extremely frustrated. This has been a process that we've promised that things would happen, and things have not happened. And as new residents to Wildwood, it's just pretty disappointing.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we have one other one waiting to participate via Zoom, Ms. Grinder.
Hello, can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you. Just a moment.
Okay.
Okay, now we can. Just want to make sure before you begin, were you able to hear the few things that I mentioned about public participation a few minutes ago?
Yes,
before we
I am on the agenda this evening.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
You heard him say, yeah.
Okay,
All
go
right.
ahead. You can state your name and board and then please proceed.
Okay, my name is Michelle Grinder, and I've been a Wildwood resident since its inception. I have owned 7.2 acres in Indian Tree Run, and I've always meant to split the lot into a 3 and 4 acre lots so that another family can enjoy the property as well. The neighborhood is made up of 3 acre lots, and I finally did get it surveyed and got approval from all the utilities to go ahead and split the lot. I believe it'll improve the property values in the neighborhood, whatever home is brought in, and have a new Wildwood resident, the family home entering the Wildwood community. And the sale of my home is pending on this lot split. So timing is of the essence.
Okay, thank you so much. Anyone else, Travis? Okay, and no more speaker cards, Ms. Eldridge. Okay, so that concludes. I'm just going to make a note here real quickly of this last speaker. Yeah. Okay. So that takes us to, we have no public hearings. That takes us to our legislation, and we have no second readings, but we have a few first readings. And the first of those first readings is Bill 2633, and it concerns all wards. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Dodwell. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Clark. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2633.
Bill 2633, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a city contractor agreement on behalf of the city of Wildwood, Missouri with Gamma Tree Experts LLC for the planting of new trees within the public right-of-way in residential neighborhoods. First reading.
Okay, thank you. Rick, do you have anything you want to mention relative to Bill 2633?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I do not, but I'm available for any questions or comments from the council.
Any questions or comments for Rick? Councilmember Clark?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Brown, my question is, for this $65,000, how many trees is that? And what's the survivability of those trees? Because I see a lot of trees around that we've planted that are not surviving. So are we sure that the trees we're going to plant or they are going to plant are ones that have a high survival rate?
As far as the trees and the planting of the trees. Based on the past projects we've seen, the most recent one, we've seen about 10% of the trees not make it, unfortunately. There's no guarantee that, well, we're always going to lose some of the trees. We do have a guarantee in the contract such that when they die, they get replanted at no cost by the contractor that planted them originally. So that's typically how we address that concern, is to have the warranty in the contract. But the last project, we did have about 10% of them die, and we have moved to using the smaller number 15 container stock. And part of that change was we feel that those trees do have a better survivability than using the larger container stock that's the balled and burlapped plant material. So that's the other thing we've done more lately, is to change the style of the size of the trees that we are planting.
You good, Councilmember Clark?
How many trees does that cover?
Yeah, as I said in my memorandum, it plants 150 trees at $295 a tree. It's the total of just under $45,000.
May I follow up on that?
Sure.
What's the percentage of labor compared to the percentage of the cost of the tree?
I could probably find out and follow up with you if you'd like to know what the cost of the tree is. I think I could probably determine that, and well, if I can, I'll be glad to provide that to you in the meantime.
Thank you.
Folks.
I think it's on, isn't it? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
I've had a number of folks in my ward where we replanted the trees last year that either they're very slow in developing or are not going to develop any further. So I'm just wondering what the process is to have our tree people come out and I guess replace them.
So we have inspected the trees that we planted last year in the fall and even in the spring. So we have a record of the ones that have not made it. And we will be following up with the contractor that planted them and having them replanted. So if a resident wants to contact us and let us know there's a dead tree, certainly that does not hurt, but we have re-inspected them. So we should have record of the ones that have not made it to date.
So then just so I can also kind of further advise them, is there, I assume there's a good time of year to plant these trees? When is that generally?
Yes, the fall would be the preferred time. That's why the contract for fall planting is in front of you.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yep.
Councilor Dodwell.
Rick, do you have a description of which tree types we picked? That wasn't in here previously. We've seen that information in our documents that come before us. So I was just curious. We're getting rid of ash trees. What are we putting in?
I'm making a note. I'll provide you the species that Andy Berg has been working on. He's been working on getting trees reserved for us at nurseries. So I will provide that to the council as well, if that's okay.
That's fine with me. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on Bill 2633? All right, thank you. Moving next to Bill 2634, it's before the council also for first reading, and it concerns Ward 8. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Garitano, seconded by Councilmember Galani. All in favor of the motion for first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2634.
Bill 2634, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, approving a change in zoning from the NU non-urban residence district to the R3 10,000 square foot residence district for 16,977 square foot tract of land that is located on the west side of Lindy Lane, north of Manchester Road. First reading.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett, do you have anything further to mention relative to this bill?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, an aerial photograph has been placed on the screen tonight The subject site is the area that is being identified by Mr. Newberry and the left or right hand. This particular request was before the city council 3 weeks ago at a public hearing. At the conclusion of the public hearing, city council authorized the preparation of legislation. The intent is to rezone the property and construct a new single-family dwelling. If there are any questions, the department would be glad to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Benich from anyone? All right, the bill will be on the council's agenda in 2 weeks for second reading. Moving next to Bill 2635, it's before the council for first reading and it concerns Ward 3. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill?
I'll make the motion.
Made by Councilmember Ottenberg, seconded by Councilmember Nyan. All in favor of the motion for first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2635.
Bill 2635, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood authorizing a lot split plat for a legal lot of record that exists as a tract of land in section 25, Township 45 North, Range 3 East, City of Wildwood, St. Louis County, Missouri, and situated on the west side of Indian Tree Run, north and east of Shepherd Road, to be known hereafter as the Grunder subdivision. First reading.
Thank you. Joe, anything you want to mention relative to Bill 2635? I know we had during public participation, the owner and I think what I was reading into the comments was essentially a request for a second reading based on contractual obligations. So if you could speak to that as well with any of your comments, I would appreciate it.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Again, the plat has been presented on the share screen. The current lot is over 7 acres in size, and the intent is to divide it into 2 lots. The lot with the existing single-family dwelling will be over 4 acres in size, and the new lot, the vacant lot, will be over 3 acres in size. Access to the new lot is via either Indian Tree Run or an existing 50-foot wide easement that intersects with Shepherd Road to the east. The surveying company, along with the property owner, has met all the requirements of the city of Wildwood in terms of the plat itself and the submittal of utility letters, name certifications, and tax statement. So therefore, the department would not offer an objection to a second reading tonight. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thanks.
Okay, are there any questions for Joe or comments? Councilor Ottenberg?
So based on that, I would like to vote.
Okay, so we have a motion for second reading of the bill this evening. Is there a second to the motion made by Councilmember Nyan? As you know, given that we would be doing a second reading of the same bill in the same meeting, that is a supermajority 2/3 vote. We'll do a voice vote first and see how that goes. And based on that, whether we need to do a roll call or otherwise. Any discussion on the motion for second reading? See no discussion. All in favor of the motion for second reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So the 2/3 majority has been met. Ms. Eldridge, would you please read Bill 2635 a second time?
Bill 2635, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood authorizing a lot split plat for a legal lot of record that exists as a tract of land in section 25, Township 45 North, Range 3 East, City of Wildwood, St. Louis County, Missouri, and situated on the west side of Indian Tree Run, north and east of Shepherd Road, to be known hereafter as the Grunder subdivision. Second reading.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from any member of the council? Seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage of Bill 2635.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
Councilmember Bros,
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano,
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Nyan,
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper.
Yes.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino.
Yes.
Okay, Bill 2635 has passed. Moving next to Bill 2636 is before the council for first reading, and it concerns Ward 8. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Galani, seconded by Councilmember Garetano. All in favor of the motion for first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
We have one opposed, Councilmember McCutcheon. Is there any other opposed? Are there any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2636.
Bill 2636, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing a lot split plat for the Prime Place project upon a legal lot of record that exists as Lot 4A5 of the re-subdivision of Lot 4A of the subdivision of Lot 4 of Deerberg's Wildwood and Lot 5B of the re-subdivision of Lot 5 of Deerberg's Wildwood, as recorded in Plat Book 357, pages 484 and 485, all being located in the southeast quarter, Section 1, Township 44 North, Range 3 East of the 5th Principal Meridian, City of Wildwood, St. Louis County, Missouri, to be known as the Lot Split Plat, first reading.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett, do you have anything to add to the information the council's been provided relative to Bill 2636?
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, this particular lot that is the subject of the division occupies the southwest corner of Main Street and Taylor Road, a major intersection in the downtown district of Town Center. The intent is to create a 2.5 acre lot for the Prime Place project, which would be on the property addressed as 16780 Main Street. This is the plat that Mr. Cohn spoke of earlier during public participation and requested a second reading. The department again would note that all of the items have been provided by the engineer surveyor or property owner, and it offers no objection to a second reading tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Joe relative to the bill? Councilmember Bartoni.
So I don't know if the question is for the petitioner or not, but I can certainly appreciate helping somebody save $300,000 on construction costs. That's a lot of money. But we're not going to see a pile of lumber out there anytime soon, are we? Like not before construction. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So we did have the request from Mr. Cohn this evening for a second reading. Does anyone on the council, and we have no objection from the department, does anyone on the council wish to make that motion? Made by Councilmember Edens, seconded by Councilmember Galani. Any discussion on the motion for second reading? So as you know, this will take a supermajority 2/3 vote. We'll do it by voice vote first and see how that goes before making a decision about whether to do something different. So all in favor of the motion for second reading of Bill 2636, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
We have one opposed, Councilor McCutcheon. Any abstentions? So the supermajority has been reached. Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2636.
Bill 2636, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing a lot split plat for the Prime Place project upon a legal lot of record that exists as Lot 4A5 of the re-subdivision of Lot 4A of the subdivision of Lot 4 of Deerberg's Wildwood and Lot 5B of the re-subdivision of Lot 5 of Deerberg's Wildwood, as recorded in Plat Book 357, pages 484 and 485, all being located in the southeast quarter, Section 1, Township 44 North, Range 3 East of the 5th Principal Meridian, City of Wildwood, St. Louis County, Missouri, to be known as the Lot Split Plat, second reading.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments relative to Bill 2636? Seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage of Bill 2636.
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Yes.
Councilmember Edens.
Yes.
Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
Councilmember Garetano.
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher.
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
No.
Councilmember Farmer.
Yes.
Councilmember Nyan.
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Galani.
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper.
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi.
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino.
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Yes.
Okay, Bill 2636 has passed. That takes us to Bill 2637. It's before the council for first reading. It concerns all wards. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Clark. All in favor of the motion for first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2637.
Bill 2637, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, revising the budget for the city of Wildwood, Missouri for the fiscal year commencing on January 1, 2021, and ending on December 31st, 2021. First reading.
Thank you. City Administrator Cross, would you like to say anything relative to the bill?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, I would just simply say that in a municipal setting, the 2021 budget, even with these amendments, continues to be a balanced budget, and that is defined as reserves plus revenues minus expenditures. So this is a typical process that the city goes through this time each year. We have 6 months, 7 months worth of actual data, and therefore the directors of the different departments, as well as the finance officer and myself, review that and make the appropriate adjustments based on what we have seen so far and where we see ending at the end of the year. We have some pickups in revenues and we have some additional expenditures. There'll be a final adjustment to the budget at the end of the year if need be. But I do want to point out that the budget is with our reserve balance continues to be a balanced budget. Thank you.
Thank you. With respect to the budget in the documents, there are, of course, several line items and so forth for not only the council, but the public to view and understand. So with that in mind, is there anything of material consequence as to an alteration that you would like to point out, or do you think they just sort of speak for themselves?
Kind of yes and no. I would say that there are three. The revenues went up in total about $26,000. We do have a pickup in sales revenues. The 1% sales. We are a pool tax city, and so we've picked up some revenues there, and we picked up a little bit of revenue in other areas. There are three major line items where there are some significant increases in expenditures for things that were unforeseen at the beginning of the year when the budget was put together. The most significant of that is $155,000 increase in snow removal. We had, what do we have? I think we had 5 snow events back in February of 2021 that were not contemplated and required an awful lot of additional snow removal. And so that added greatly to the expenditures at that time. In addition to that, we've got a $50,000 increase in right-of-way landscaping. We've had many conversations here in chambers regarding the landscaping, maintenance of islands, roundabouts, streetscapes that we did not contemplate when we put together the original 2021 budget this time last year. And then lastly, there's a $70,000 line item increase in right-of-way tree removal. And that's primarily related to the emerald ash borer that we've again discussed many times here at council in terms of trying to keep ahead of the removing the dead trees, the dead and dying trees. So there's some significant increases in expenses. Overall, the expenditures went up $210,000 versus the deficit, if you will, but it's not really a deficit. It's just the difference between revenues and expenditures, not taking into consideration the reserves, which is part of a balanced budget. We've added on about $210,000 net expenditures versus additional revenues.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Again, I think it's helpful for the public that may not have the time to look at all those line items to know what the material alterations are. Councilmember Bartoni.
Thank you. I mean, Steve, this is a really nice report, and it was just very easy to read and understand. And just thank you to you and your staff and everybody for putting it together. I mean, the notes make it really simple. And in addition to the couple things you noticed, I mean, our park maintenance also is, increasing. And I know that's something that Joe fights for every year at budget time, which we have coming up here shortly. So we're gonna have to keep that in mind also to make sure he has enough money for that. But great job with the report.
Well, and on that note, thank you for mentioning that, Councilmember Bartoni. I would like to also note, I actually had this on the agenda previously under mayor announcements and overlooked it, unfortunately. My apology for that. But for the 16th year in a row, the city of Wildwood, our finance department with Dawn and her team have received the Government Finance Officers Association exemplary award, and that related to our 2021 budget. So thanks are certainly in order, and that's something that is just incredible for our city to have, and hopefully makes our residents very proud of the operation that we have here relative to financial management. So, all right. Okay, last, anything else on 2636? If not, it'll be on the agenda for the next council meeting. Moving next to Bill 2637. Anything further on Bill 2637? Okay, moving last to first readings, Bill 2638 is before the council and it concerns all wards. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Dodwell. Is there a second? Second made by Councilmember McCutcheon. All in favor of the motion for first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2638.
Bill 2638, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, amending section 110.110 of the Code of Ordinances of the city of Wildwood relating to the compensation of council members. First reading.
Thank you. I would just like to say a couple of words about this. First of all, this, as you can see on the agenda, is being proposed by me. This was not asked for, and the council has had no part in bringing it forward. It does rest with me solely. Secondly, I'd like to mention that this bill, once passed, if that occurs, does not increase any pay of the council. It simply does, among other things, two in principle. First, it renders the council stipend consistent, the procedure for that payment consistent with the way that the mayor is paid. In other words, not hinging it on a meeting versus as a monthly stipend. And number two, it recognizes that our council members do a lot in their role relative to representing our residents, of which attending council meetings is one part, and it's an important part, but there are also many other parts. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain those now. Otherwise, this will be on the agenda for the council's meeting in 2 weeks. Questions? All right. Thank you. And I'm sorry, Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, I just had one question about, should it say compensation, the sum of up to $4,800 instead of the sum of $4,800? Because if we were absent, we wouldn't get that money.
No, actually, you do get it. That's the whole point.
You do?
Yep, you do.
Okay.
But then the question of whether it should be up to, generally, City Attorney Young, do you have an opinion on that?
No, the compensation is the compensate. It's like having a salary. It's the same. So it would not change.
All right, thank you for the question. Any other questions? Okay, that takes us to, we have no resolutions, nothing on the consent agenda. I do want to mention before we end that we had 4 receipt and files under the work session. And those were PZ 25-21, Patrick Tooth, that relates to a game court, I believe, in Ward 8. PZ 10-21 through 1921 that related to changes in our zoning generally. And then an update on the master plan, as well as the P&Z officers for the coming year that have been nominated. So if any member of the council wants those discussed, what we would need to do is reconsider, and my apology for overlooking that, we would need to reconsider after we adjourn this meeting, the adjournment motion for the work session and go back and have that discussion. If you don't want to discuss these and you're just comfortable that they're receipt and files, then we can just move forward without reconsidering the adjournment and going back into the work session. So does anyone want to go back into the work session and discuss the receipt and files? Seeing none. All right, we're good. And again, my apology for that. That takes us to anything else anyone would like to mention under miscellaneous. Councilmember Garrett.
I just wanted to briefly mention, because it was brought up tonight by one of the speakers regarding Center Avenue, and there's an update in the work session. So if you are looking for additional details, but my hope is that in working with the Department of Planning and the city administrator, that hopefully we're going to get to a point where we could get kind of a deadline in place as far as what needs to happen. And then there have been other options that are available that have been presented as some things that the city could do in order to move this forward to get the street addressed, because the residents, and Mr. Sheridan was here before. I didn't realize he was here too for the street there. He's right there. So I just want to make that comment because I know that folks are watching and looking for an update on that.
So I think our city administrator has made note of that and he will be in reply. Thank you. Anything else under miscellaneous? Councilmember Clark.
So just wondering about the update on, and can we proceed with the signage on Old Wild Horse Creek Road that shows no parking and not a through street? Our residents are still requesting that.
That would be responsible to the beach.
Mr. Vintage, do you have a response for that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The week prior to Labor Day, I provided to Mr. Brown a proposal for temporary no parking signs and the installation of a not through street. I believe Mr. Brown's reviewing that. Under his emergency authority, he can post the street for no parking. And then the department would present to the Board of Public Safety a request for that to become permanent. So it's all in the works, Ms. Clark and other members of City Council. Thank you.
Mr. Vunish, do you have a timing on that? Because when I brought it forward, it was 10 days and it's been past the 10 days.
Again, I would defer to Mr. Brown relative to his emergency authority to post the street for no parking. So I would ask him to respond to a timeline.
Without objection, Director of Public Works, Rick Brown.
Yes, Joe's right. I've got the information on my desk. It just hasn't filtered to the top. I was a little confused as to what the situation was there specifically and what the complaint was. So I may need some additional information before we can act, but we'll address it as quickly as we can.
And the city administrator just indicated he'll follow up with Rick in the morning. Okay, thank you. Anything else from anyone? All right, I'm sorry, Councilmember Edens.
Yes, I'll follow up with the departments, but it's kind of been a resident concern week. And so just continual emails, not only about internet, but I'm very hopeful now, but just about mowing maintenance as well. So specifically Orville and Shepherd intersection, I know we don't have, I believe it's AT&T with an easement through there. So I'll follow up with the department about maintenance on that. But.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Clark.
Yes, thank you. Another issue is at 100 and 109, I'm sorry, Manchester Road and 109, the utility company has made some adjustments there and taken a lot of the vegetation out and has gone into the tree line, and some of the trees they look like they're dying and it's very unsightly. Is there something we're going to do to rectify that or beautify it, because it really looks awful right now?
City Administrator Cross.
Thank you, Councilmember Clark. And you did give me a heads up about that. I spoke with Public Works Director, Mr. Brown today, asked him to go out and visit the site, which he did. He did go down and take a look at it. As it turns out, and I asked Mr. Brown to issue a written response with regards to his findings. The cuts themselves are clean. What we're seeing is there are branches that were cut that have not fallen all the way to the ground and have got caught up in other limbs, and they are turning brown, and it looks like the trees are dying when in fact they're very, very healthy. And there is some of the cuttings from those trees, the pruning that was done, have fallen to the ground, and they also are looking a little unsightly. I've asked Mr. Brown to follow up with the vegetation manager at Ameren, which he will probably do this week, I'm sure, to make sure that they are aware of the beautification efforts that the city is undertaking and make sure that the area that they're still working at now will be to the standards that the city requires. And so I think what you're seeing is some things that can easily be removed, both in the trees as well as on the ground. And we'll make sure that that area looks the way that Mr. Brown will explain and we expect in the city of Wildwood. Thank you.
Is that in the utility? Just a second. Councilmember Clark, anything from?
Thank you.
Councilmember Raymond.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
That's
I was
okay.
just, following up, is that on the utility right away, that work that's been done? 'Cause I drove by and saw
Is
it.
your mic on?
I drove by and saw that work and it did look pretty ugly, but I just glanced and I'm wondering if it's on the utility right away or private land owned by Ameren, or do you have any idea about that?
I know it's at the southeast corner, but for more specificity, I would ask Mr. Brown if he wouldn't mind perhaps providing a more in-depth answer than I'm able to give.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, thank you. The work is related to Ameren trimming the vegetation near their power lines. So it really depends. And I don't know that I know for sure whether they're on easement or on right of way in that location. Typically along the roadway like that, they are in fact on the right of way. So in this case, it may be a bit of both, but just looking at it right now, it looks like it might be a bit of both, possibly a private easement as well as on the right of way.
So there's no difference in how they would handle the trimming because they made a mess. They sometimes make a mess in the easements, but they don't on the public rights of way.
They're typically required by federal law to trim the trees to a certain clearance relative to the power lines in place. And that's usually what they're doing, is try to attain a certain clearance so that the trees don't come in contact with the power lines in bad weather when the winds are blowing and that kind of thing. So that's typically their goal, and to keep the underbrush from growing up underneath those power lines as well. So in my experience is it really doesn't matter if they're on easement or on right of way. They're going to trim it to meet the federal law that they are required to meet, frankly.
Okay, thank you. And while we're on these types of things, Rick, if you could make note, please, the state Wildwood sign at the Franklin County line is actually, I think it appears to be falling over. I reported this personally on the MoDOT website, which Mr. Piercy, the area engineer, had suggested we do. And I got a reply that they had fixed it. It isn't fixed, and it looks like it's going to fall over. So if you could please, since that didn't work, if you could please follow up with them and see that that gets fixed, we would appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else? All right. That brings it, Councilmember Garetano. Motion to adjourn made by Councilmember Garetano, seconded by Councilmember Galani. It's a non-debatable motion. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who attended this evening.